So let's start things off with the top story for today. The top prosecutor in England and Wales has said that hundreds more involved in the unrest over the last week will be brought to justice. Stephen Parkinson has claimed that those involved in the most serious crimes could face up to 10 years in jail. And this all comes as Labour prepares to release prisoners who have served just 40% of their sentence to combat overcrowding. In the meantime, Sir Keir Starmer's approval rating has dropped amid the unrest up and down the country. Well, GB News' West Midlands reporter Jack Carson has been out and about asking for people's opinions on the story. I'm delighted to say he joins me now. OK, so start me off then. Does the punishment fit the crime? What are people saying about all of this?
Well, it really is a mixed opinion. Some people, saying to me very clearly that if you go to a riot, if you're part of that violent protest and that's what you're involved in, then you have to face the consequences, of course, of your own actions. But others wary, picking up on points simply around, whether it's actually consistently policed and there is consistent sentencing across all groups and all protests that we've seen. We've seen violence at a lot of protests over the past few weeks. So questions of consistency, but also as well around the cost that it takes, of course, to have a prisoner, within the criminal justice system. And if it's 10-year sentencing, of course, that is a lot of money. But these comments are coming from Stephen Parkinson. He's the head of the Crown Prosecution Services, reported in the Sunday Times, saying that as more people enter the criminal justice system that have been arrested, that are charged, some, when you get to these more serious cases that the justice system is now getting through, they might well be charged with the charge of rioting. Now, so far, what we've seen over the past week is people very quickly have maybe been involved in disorder and then going through the justice system. They've been charged and very quickly sentenced, some within 48 hours. They've been charged with violent disorder. Now that carries a much lesser sentence, only up to the point of 5 years. So that's why, with people being charged with rioting, that is seen as a more serious offence. And that's why, if you've been involved in that violent disorder, if you've been charged with rioting, that sentence could carry up to 10 years. Now, Mr. Parkinson has basically said that they warned of the consequences, and so they're simply delivering those consequences. So it's not about exacting revenge, but it's about delivering justice. Now, the Prime Minister had said that courts in some cases could well be open for 24 hours in order to fast-track these people through the system. It has very much acted as a deterrent. But what have people been telling me on the street? Here's what some said earlier on.
I think the question should be who's getting sentenced, because if that's consistent across the entire people across the UK, then that's fine. But I think the biggest challenge is, when we look at about the riots, is everyone getting treated fairly? Probably not. I think what I've noticed and what I can see is different communities are getting treated differently, and that's not fair.
I think if people are going to do this sort of thing, then they must be prepared for the consequences. Normal people, well, I say everyone is normal to a certain extent, and if people want to go about doing their own business and people are going to keep rioting, it's making other people uncomfortable. So if the punishment is there for the crime, then they'll have to serve it, won't they? And if that's what the government need to do to make these people realise that, you can't just go around doing what you want to do, then they'll have to take the prison term, won't they? And I think that's fair. I think that's fair for everybody. Other people just want to go about doing their own business and enjoying life, And if these people are going to try stopping them, it's not right, is it?
I think it's way too much, because the government is concerned about financial gains and the actual debt as a country, and they're trying to pull back money. Well, if you send one person to prison, I think it's about average of £80,000 a year to look after one for 1 year. So it's 10 years, it's like nearly £1 million. Well, that's actually ridiculous. So we send 100 away to prison. Well, that's an awful lot of wasted money. There's got to be other ways of actually dealing with this situation than actually sending people to prison, and I think they're going to do better by, because is it going to benefit them? No, it's not. Long term, it'll probably make them worse.
So what's the different points that you heard there that those people are making? Within any sentencing, a judge is there to view it as they will. There are, of course, always mitigating factors within sentences that mean very few people maybe get the maximum term, but that is the availability that is there for judges. If someone is charged with rioting and they go through the court system, if a judge deems it necessary to sentence them for 10 years under these powers and of course on the order of the Crown Prosecution service when that is available, they are happy, of course, if they want to sentence them towards 10 years. Now, over 770 people have already been arrested for instances within violent disorder, more than 340 people charged. Those charges are expected to continue into the coming weeks as these people are investigated by the police.
All right, Jack Carlson, thank you so much. Really good to talk to you, Jack Carlson, on sentencing, the new sort of ensuring that people do get the full force of the law. But with all of that, a lot of people are saying that Keir Starmer's doing a good job. But some people don't seem to think so, because joining me now is GB News' political correspondent Olivia Utley. Olivia, Keir Starmer's poll rating is plummeting.
It is absolutely plummeting. It seems to be almost in free fall as a result of these riots. Now, the criticism of most people who responded to the survey was that Keir Starmer didn't respond quickly enough. It took him a week to organise a Cobra meeting, and for last week it wasn't clear whether or not he was going to cancel his European summer holiday with his family. He has now said that he will be cancelling that summer holiday, but for some people that comes too late. I think another issue which Keir Starmer is facing, which is impacting his poll ratings, is that his voters are very, very split on whether he's taking the right approach to this in a more sort of macro way. His approach at the moment is to basically get as many people behind bars as possible for as long as possible. And there are plenty of voters, 34% according to one study, who think that actually some of these rioters have a point, even if they don't like the way they're going about it. They think that there is a problem with mass migration, with uncontrolled immigration, and that Keir Starmer needs to sort it out. That is going to be a really, really tricky problem for Keir Starmer to deal with, because, of course, his voters make up a very, very broad coalition, particularly on the issue of immigration. You've got those on the left, sort of classic Labour voters, who think that even talking about reducing illegal migration is racist in some way. And then you've got those who are perhaps more traditionally Conservative voters, but got fed up with the last government and decided to give Labour a chance at this election, who believe that immigration needs controlling, part of that 34% who Boris Johnson mentioned in his Mail on Sunday article yesterday. So Keir Starmer has got to try and find a way to marry those two groups together, not get anyone angry about the issue of immigration. That's going to be tricky.
Well, it is, because he's got lots of different factions of his party. So we hear from Sir Paul Stevenson, former Commissioner. He said that he was not impressed by Sir Keir's response, suggesting that it had prioritised tough language over action. I mean, this is, as a former Metropolitan Police Commissioner, is also saying the same thing.
Yeah, there is definitely that argument. I mean, you could say that Keir Starmer, in a way, has been quite tough in that he has managed to keep courts open for much longer than usual. He's pretty speedily got people arrested, 500 arrests already, 150 or so people convicted already. But even that poses its own problems for the Prime Minister, because he's basically painted himself into a corner. Keeping courts open like this, fast-tracking cases through the courts and getting people arrested, it costs a lot of money. And Rachel Reeves and Starmer, when they were doing their election campaign, they really tied their own hands together by not really promising very much more money. So they said, as we know, that they are not going to be increasing taxes on working people. Well, now they've set this precedent for how quickly people can be sentenced for issues such as rioting. I think there will probably be a public demand for other crimes to be sentenced more quickly too. And can they do it?
If you can do it that quickly for rioting, then you need to do it that quickly for everything else. Olivia Utley, thank you very much. Yes, very good point. Well, joining me now is lawyer Rebecca Butler for more on this. Rebecca, thank you so much. Really good to see you. Really good to talk to you. OK, so first of all, the sentencing, giving people up to 10 years as a maximum for the worst form of rioting. In your view, is that a realistic thing? And will anybody ever be likely to be charged with that?
Well, the thing about Riot is to be charged for Riot, there are certain factual devices that need to be present, and it actually requires the consent of the DPP. In the 10 years between 2008 and 2018, only 35 people were in fact convicted of Riot. It is a very rare offence, and as I say, there are very specific factual matrices that have to be fulfilled before the offence of Riot is made out. I suspect that very few will actually be charged with Riot. It's much easier for the police to charge the violent disorder and affray as alternatives to Riot. And I honestly can't see that many going to be convicted or charged even for Riot.
Because I'm just looking at the prison situation and I realise that there are just over 700 places available, apparently. What on earth, what are we going to do with these people? Where are they going to go? The prisons are already overcrowded.
Well, you're presuming guilt because there are a fair number of people who have been charged have pleaded guilty at the first opportunity already. They get their discount, they get their early and swift justice, and they're sort of dealt with. There are a number of people, particularly the incitements to cause disturbances, the people with social media charges. Now, it's not a done deal that they're going to plead guilty at the first opportunity, because they may wait to run their case before either the Crown Court with a jury, or to run their case before magistrates. So we can't assume that everybody is going to plead guilty. Proving riot is exceptionally difficult to do, and I really do believe that it is more likely that the police are going to prefer a fray, which is 3 years, and violent disorder, which is a maximum of 5. You don't get the maximum just because that's what you're charged with, because the way that the courts deal with sentencing is they go through a series of factors and then look at the mitigations and the previous record of the defendant in front of the court.
So it's a lot of money, though, they're going to be spending on doing all this.
Well, there's a lot of money they're going to be spending cleaning up these communities that some of these thugs have completely trashed. And a lot of money has to be spent on dealing with the causes of these disturbances, which is going to cost eye-watering sums of money. The country is desperately divided. People are not being listened to. People are being branded, and people feel very frustrated. None of us will sympathise with the riots who go and speak with their fists. But in order for these matters to be quelled, yes, you do need quick justice, and some of them have seen that, others won't. But you need to see equal-handed policing. You need to see consistent policing, you need to see fair court processes, and you need to see dialogue and discourse between the different groups involved in these problems. It's exactly what they did with football hooliganism in the early 2000s. They managed that extremely well with a combination of legislation, guidelines to the court, and the policing having the opportunity to go and speak to the football thugs and to really get into the bones of why people were committing those violent acts at that time.
Well, Rebecca, let's hope that they do look to the causes of these things. Obviously, nobody agrees with the rioting in any way, shape or form, but the question needs to be asked, why? Rebecca Butler, thank you very much. Really good to speak to you. That's Rebecca Butler. She's a lawyer.